First, I want to be clear when I speak of integrating the narcissist and when I speak of just anything in terms of the information that I have come to believe about what I've seen, what I've felt, what I've understood about energy. When it comes to the vibrational scale and spectrum of narcissism and codependency, I'm coming from a position of being raised by a woman who is incredibly codependent on her very narcissistic and abusive father. And her mother was incredibly codependent on him. All of the females in the family were incredibly, and I would say males actually too, incredibly codependent on him. With him, I should say, not on him, with him. That whole system abided by his being the center and everybody else was the spoke of the wheel. And it was a very wobbly, floppy wheel, okay? So then I come along, and here's this woman who has been raised by a codependent woman who would not leave an abuser regardless of the accusations made against him, regardless of how many times he put her in the hospital, regardless of how many children he had outside of her marriage. She would not leave. She did not leave when they were in old age and he was crying because his girlfriend had just died. She did not leave ever, okay? And she woke up until, like, pretty much the last days of her life were continuously spent the same as the other ones were, which was in terror, okay? So she would wake up every night having terrible nightmares, screaming that somebody was attacking her. She lived in that vibratory way her whole life. And then here comes my mom, who they're taught to idolize the narcissist, right? In this family system. It's like, well, you have to do what he says. If you don't, it's going to be terrible. So she sees him as this holy almighty who is supposed to be her father and who's supposed to love her and provide for her, whatever. That's not what he actually is, but she can't create the clarity to not have the cognitive dissonance to recognize that, you know, her almighty is actually a perpetrator in a really serious way. So then she has me, and I'm raised to trust her almighty. I'm raised to not speak of the almighty and what he does, just as everybody else was. And so I watched these and I watched my mother's projections with my father, because if you are somebody who has these, and I'm only going to speak for my situation, watching her have these relationship patterns with her father, the only way to safely work it out was with my father. And she learned that to be in control, you were cold and abusive and criticizing from her father. And she learned that to be in a relationship, you were passive and loving and you stuck it out from her mother. So she's stuck in the middle, being controlling, cold, sticking it out, but hating it anyway. And learning just being in a relationship that's as wobbly as that family system was, okay? But the thing is, her relationship with my father was projected onto their relationship because she needed to work that out safely, okay? And the thing is, and I feel entitled to say this, I know them both, the things that she's projected onto my father his entire life are not my father. And he, for some parts of it, has acquiesced and morphed on her behalf, and other times he's been like, I'm not taking on that projection. But I want you to understand that that's where I'm coming from when I speak of this, is that I was forced to be hyper vigilant in a very young age. I was taught that. It was very obvious to me, the unspoken rules of that family system when it came to my grandfather. It was very obvious to me that my mom was working out her shit with my father, and that my father was like 5 steps removed from my grandfather, but doing exactly the same things, just in more socially appropriate ways. And my mom was actually doing that. So this is where shadow work comes in, and this is where I want you to understand that I understand that being inside of a codependent relationship is way harder than from where I can sit and see it where I am right now, because I was incredibly then codependent on my mother. So when she displayed incredibly codependent relationship with her father and incredibly narcissistic relationship toward me. And that's just how it goes down the number line. This vibratory thing, it's like there's many planes of existence, and the codependency narcissism thing, like if you're constantly seeing this in your mirror, you're familiar with this frequency, okay? And I want to talk about the frequency, because this chick says I got an email, and she basically said, I'm going to use her language because her language was important. The behavior I don't quite comprehend is how to integrate the narcissist. Okay. We are not going to be integrating the narcissist in behavior. Okay. Integration, when I speak of integration, it's a willingness to see yourself. And God, I worked with somebody the other day who's been doing a lot of work. She's also like, has her PhD in psychology. She said, I thought this was supposed to be easier. I'm like a little bit ashamed. That's not easier. This shit is hard. Okay. To actually see yourself and to look in the mirror and go, whoa, if I really want to change my life, if I really want to clean up my mirror, I got to clean up my mirror. I got to look into it first. So it's not that you're going to all of a sudden start acting like a narcissist. It's that you're going to stop making the narcissist wrong. You're going to understand, and here's the thing too. When we're in a relationship pattern with a narcissist, these people, and I'm sure you've been one of them at one point in your life, I know I have, they know that they're loved when they are able to hurt you, okay? They know that you love them because you're willing to hurt for them. And a truly desperate narcissist is going to hurt you and hurt you and hurt you and hurt you because you stay and you react and you love them enough to let them hurt you, which is really twisted and fucked up, right? But what's true is that what we do as codependents on the inside of that is we stay in those situations because subconsciously we were taught that the only way to be loved by God itself is to be in pain. That we call upon God when we are in pain, okay? We call upon the thing that's supposed to love us, that thing we're taught, indoctrinated as a child to like, that's going to be the almighty savior for us. We're not necessarily taught like, oh, God is like with us when things are really great and when you are being bad, God is with you and loves you. And when you are being ashamed, God is with you and loves you. We're taught, call upon God when you're so desperate, there's absolutely nothing left. And then we do this in ourselves and we play out this relationship within ourselves where we go, if I'm not hurting, if I'm not suffering, I'm probably not lovable. And narcissists do this, right? They will go, if you're not hurting on my behalf, I'm probably not lovable. And I'm saying this because that's integration. Recognizing that pattern that goes on. All you have to do is recognize it. And be willing to go, oh yes, that's interesting, that's me. Their mechanism for operation is something that I'm doing upon myself. And once you stop doing that to yourself, once you understand that God doesn't need you to hurt in order for you to have permission to be loved, you won't let somebody else whose pattern is the same as that do that to you. Because you're just on the one side going, well, as long as this person's hurting me, then I'm probably worth it because I'm suffering. And you're letting them operate their malfunctional pattern with you. You're literally with the dynamic. It's not something that somebody's doing to you. So it's not a behavior. You're not going to all of a sudden be like, oh, I'm going to go out and be abusive, or I'm going to go out and like start shaming people and whatever it is. It's not in behavior. Integration is in the willingness to see that at the end of the day, it might look right or wrong. One person might be doing it in a more appropriate way, but the energetic desire and mechanism is the same. We just make one wrong. So if we can look at the narcissist and say, I love you, despite I love you, knowing that you're so desperate that this is the only way you know how to act. And when you love the narcissist enough to stop letting them hurt you, they'll feel loved and they'll stop hurting you. So it's not about integration of behavior. It's about integration of recognizing that pattern that I don't like in this person, because every narcissist is different, that somewhere subconsciously you are either doing that pattern or you're in rebellion of that pattern. So the pattern, either way, whether you're doing it or you're opposed to it, is in control of your psyche. So again, there might be some behavioral components to integration, like dance, or there might be behavioral components where you have to go out and be like, okay, like I'm actually going to stop letting you, I'm going to stop letting you hurt me. And that would be a behavioral integration. And that feels like we're being the narcissist because we're like not being there for people when we say, okay, I'm not going to let you do this to me anymore, but it's not. So that might be a behavior, but that behavior comes after the recognition, where true integration shows you the behavior. There's no behavior that you do to integrate. So then she says, she says that how to integrate my projections of my subconscious that pattern their reality of surviving. She says that she can comprehend that this is a mirror, but that she doesn't necessarily find integration in the saying or like talking to her inner child. She doesn't find integration in saying like, I no longer need these patterns. That's because you might not need these patterns any longer, but the pattern needs you to actually look at it, to actually see it, to actually engage, get in the pattern so you can get out of the pattern, whatever the pattern is, once you can see it without the lenses of, I don't know, faulty perception. Once you can just like kind of see it objectively and then hop in with consciousness when you go, okay, like I can actually see it now. So I'm going to get into it and I'm going to change it from the inside out. That's like ground up kind of work. And I think a lot of us, especially when we're heady people, we work from the head and try to dump from the head. But what we have to be doing is working from the ground up, which is that we have to get in the pattern to get out of the pattern. We have to get through the pattern to get out of the pattern. So we have to get in and go, oh, if I'm the narcissist, what then? And how can I love myself then? If I am the codependent, what then? How can I love myself then? If I'm the empath, then how can I love myself then? And it's so funny because one will have a charge. They're all the same thing. They're all, if you were looking down at the planet vibrationally, and they're dense for sure, they're all the same thing with a different word. If all of a sudden we said empaths are narcissists, oh my God, how would that change things for the feeling that you get when you go, oh, I'm an empath, so that means this thing about me, okay? So, her basic question is about projecting, and she's saying that at the end of the day, her inner child wants to feel heard by projecting, and this is the thing that my mom did with my dad. What she's saying is that I project my pain onto the world. And I'm aware, she's aware, that she's doing that because she wants her inner child to feel validated in her pain. So she keeps revisiting this pain and projecting it onto the world, and she's going, how do I stop that? How do I stop that thing that I'm doing? I can see myself doing it. How do I stop doing it? Well, we have to understand that projection is interesting because when we feel safe enough to project, we're actually in a higher space than we were when we were victim to projections. So if you feel safe enough to project and you can be aware that you're projecting, it's very easy to stop projecting. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, what this woman is saying is that I know how to she can see herself projecting, doesn't know how to stop. But if you can see yourself projecting, again, integration is not about knowing how to stop. It's about willingness to stop. When I am in the middle of an argument with my partner and I can feel that sensation of like, oh, it's on, like it's coming out. That part of me is coming out. I have to willingly surrender that projection. even though it makes me want to kill myself because I'm swallowing my own ego. If you can see that your pain needs to be validated, validate your own pain. When you validate your own pain, you're going to stop bringing it with you everywhere you go. You're going to be able to put it to bed at night, leave it there for the night, go engage in the world in a different way, and then pick it back up when you want to, or whatever. Tend to it when it needs you. But pain can be sleeping in the background of your life, and genuinely sleeping at rest. So if you are projecting your pain onto the world, and that's the mirror that you're getting back, and you're aware of that, you have to be the part of yourself that sees objectively from above that part of yourself that does it, and ask that space. Not even ask. You have to go to that space, actively go to that space in the times that you're going, oh, this feels yucky. Like, don't even think, like, am I projecting or not? If you feel yucky, you're probably projecting. And if you're projecting, it's because you don't want to feel the yuckiness, and you want that person to feel the yuckiness. And then it's almost the same mechanism as, like, if you will carry my pain for me, if you will carry my projections of yourself for me, or of whatever, myself for me, if you'll carry my projections, then you'll love me. But somebody who loves you isn't going to carry your projections. Somebody, or they might carry them with you, but they won't carry them for you. They'll say, no, I'm not doing that, because they love themselves. Anybody who's going to love you is going to love themselves enough to love you. So we don't have to be suffering to deserve love. You don't have to suffer to know that you're loved. And integration is about willingness to see that somebody who's different than you, who you perceive as different than you, who charges you, is getting away with something that you think is unjust. And you think it's unjust because you were taught that it was unjust, and those parts that you were taught were unjust still live inside of you. So even if the lights turned off, it's a room inside of you. And if you can't turn on the light in that room, there's something to look at, because that thing exists inside of you. And when you bring it in, it stops showing up out there, which is really fun. And if it shows up, it's like somebody else's shit that you can easily be like, oh, just turn on that light in that room. I can see all your rooms. Like, if you would just do that thing, it'd be fine. Then it becomes fun, because it's like, oh, I'm just seeing it out there. It's no longer actually in here because I pulled it in. So I don't have to keep having it show up in my external world to show me. So I wanted to pop on here and say that to you today, because it's been a while, and whatever, I felt like I had the time to do it. So hi guys, bye.